The day my husband died, I heard nurses whisper something that would change my life forever. She doesn't know, one said. But I did find out. And when I did, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I got dangerous. If you've ever been underestimated, lied to by someone you loved, or betrayed so deeply it cracked the foundation of your reality, then this story is for you. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because this isn't just a story of grief. It's about the revenge that came after. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and something heavier. Grief, maybe. Ben had been fading for weeks. Pancreatic cancer doesn't fight fair. I was sitting by his bed when it happened. His hand in mine, eyes half closed. He wasn't speaking much anymore. Morphine made sure of that. But then the monitor beeped, the line went flat, and just like that, I became a widow. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Not right away. It was only minutes later that I heard it. 2 nurses in the hallway, voices low. She doesn't know. Do they ever? And just like that, something inside me shifted. After Ben was declared dead, I asked for his belongings. But there was no phone. Just his wallet and watch. Maybe he left it at home, the nurse said. But I knew better. Ben never went anywhere without his phone. He used it for everything: texting, work, Spotify playlists, even his medical log. I tried calling it later that night. It rang once, then went to voicemail. 3 hours later, I got a text. From Ben's number. I love you. I'll always love you. Sent after he was already pronounced dead. I froze. Then I realized someone had his phone. I called the number again. No answer. I went to Ben's iCloud. Password still worked. But the Find My iPhone app was disabled. Still, there were other breadcrumbs. Hidden files in the cloud. A hidden email. A photo backup I hadn't seen before. One picture changed everything. Ben smiling, in a beach house I'd never been to, holding a baby. And next to him, a woman I'd never met. Her name was Jessica. I hired a private investigator. In less than 48 hours, I had confirmation. Ben had been living a double life. The beach house was in North Carolina. He told me it was a client retreat. He flew there every other month. Turns out, every business trip was a visit to Jessica and their 2-year-old daughter. Yes, daughter. She looked exactly like Ben. Same eyes. Same smile. I felt like vomiting. We'd been trying for a baby for years. He told me he didn't want children anymore. Said it would be too hard with his health. Liar. At the lawyer's office, the hits kept coming. Ben had updated his will 2 months before he died. Jessica and the daughter were listed. I wasn't. Not even mentioned. Everything, our house, savings, insurance, was to go into a trust for his second family. I was legally married to this man. And yet, I was treated like a footnote. A mistake. The betrayal scorched my chest. But grief turned to rage. And rage made me clear-headed. I wasn't going to cry in the shadows. I was going to burn his lies down. I found a lawyer who specialized in estate fraud. Turns out, Ben's will might have been legally changed, but he used my money for half the assets. The trust, funded by joint accounts. We had leverage, but I wanted more than legal revenge. I wanted Jessica to know. I wanted her to understand who she was in love with and who he really was. I drove to North Carolina. I knocked on her beach house door, holding a box of Ben's things and a printed photo of our wedding day. She opened it with a confused smile, until she saw my face. I introduced myself. She dropped the box. A photo frame shattered on the deck. I told her everything. How long we'd been married. How he never told me. How he used our fertility struggles as a smokescreen while raising a child with her. She cried. She collapsed to the floor. Said she thought he was divorced. But I had the marriage license. I had the receipts. And now, so did she. She kicked me out of the house, of course. Shock, denial, rage, it all blurred. But a week later, I got a call from her. She wanted to know if the trust money could be challenged. She wanted to team up. Together, we filed legal action against Ben's estate. Turns out, he'd falsified documents to fund some of his personal purchases, including the house she lived in, using joint funds he wasn't allowed to touch. We got it all frozen, and when the court ruled in our favor, Jessica and I split the liquidated estate 50-50ths. But I wasn't done. The final move was poetic. Ben had a public memorial service planned, by his company, where he was a partner. Big screen tributes. Speeches. I showed up. In black. Silent. Grieving, but not in the way they thought. When it was my turn to speak, I stepped to the podium and introduced myself. Not as a widow, as one of 2 wives. Gasps. Murmurs. Cameras flashed. And then I walked away, handing out printed copies of the marriage certificate and the trust paperwork to Ben's partners. I didn't do it for fame or sympathy. I did it because I was erased. I was turned into a ghost while he played happy family behind my back. But now, I live free of illusions. I'm rebuilding. Stronger. Smarter. Jessica and I, we're not friends. But we're connected now, forever. And as for Ben, he thought death would spare him from consequences. But some secrets don't stay buried. I thought I'd reached the bottom of Ben's secrets. I was wrong. In going through the financial records, I found recurring payments, monthly deposits, to someone named Eleanor Stratton. $2,500. Every single month for 3 years. At first, I thought it was blackmail. But no, it was support. I followed the trail to a nursing home. And there, I met Eleanor, Ben's mother. His real, biological mother. Ben had told me his parents were dead. We'd even visited a pair of graves. He lied. Eleanor looked up at me with watery blue eyes, and when I introduced myself as Ben's wife, her hands trembled. She wasn't surprised by my visit. "Oh, honey," she said softly. "He always said it would come crashing down someday." Ben had paid her to stay quiet, to keep hidden. She wasn't allowed to contact me, or the other woman. I asked her why. She smiled bitterly. "Because your husband was addicted to control. He loved watching people orbit around him, without knowing they weren't the only ones in his sky." I left that day feeling like I'd never truly known Ben. Because I hadn't. It was a Facebook message that cracked the last piece open. A man named Aaron reached out to me after hearing about Ben's death. They had been college roommates. I hadn't met him. Ben always said he cut ties with college idiots. But Aaron told me something that chilled my blood. Ben was engaged once before. To someone named Melissa. She died. But not in an accident. Melissa committed suicide. And in her note, she blamed Ben. Said he fractured her. Said he lied, manipulated, cheated, and isolated her. Aaron had kept the note. He sent it to me. And in Melissa's words, I saw myself. The same slow erosion of identity. The same isolation. The same emotional puppeteering. I stood in the shower that night, hot water beating down on my skin, trying to peel him off of me. The memories. The wedding. The laughs. The vacations. The way he held me when I cried after our last failed IVF cycle. None of it was real. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was psychological warfare. I had loved a sociopath. And I wasn't going to let him win. Not in life. Not in legacy. Ben's company had been planning to create a charitable foundation in his name. They had already begun fundraising. I reached out to the board. I told them the full story, backed with documents, texts, testimonies. At first, they tried to brush me off. Protect their investment. But when I threatened to go public, to show the press that they were honoring a man who led a double life, who manipulated multiple women, who left a suicidal ex in his wake, they folded. The foundation? Scrapped. All raised money redirected to a women's shelter in Melissa's name instead. That was when I finally cried. Not for Ben, but for Melissa, and the girl I used to be. Jessica called me months later. She'd left the beach house. Sold it. Moved in with her parents. She said she was in therapy. She had started a blog for single mothers dealing with grief and betrayal. "Your story gave me the courage to leave his memory behind," she said. "We still weren't friends, but we were survivors of the same man. Sometimes I wonder if he loved either of us. I don't think he did. I think he loved the reflection of himself he saw in our eyes. And when we stopped reflecting it, he moved on. Some days I still wake up expecting a text from him. Grief doesn't vanish. It mutates. Sometimes it looks like rage. Other days, it's relief. I went no contact with Ben's family, his father, his fake family tree, all of it. I kept one thing, our wedding ring. I had it melted down and turned into a necklace. Not because I want to remember him, but because I want to remember me. The woman who clawed her way back from the wreckage and didn't let him take her soul with him. 6 months later, I got a letter, postmarked from hospice, dated 2 days before he died. Handwritten. Sloppy. Ben wrote, "You'll hate me for the rest of your life. You should. I lied because I didn't think you'd stay if I told you the truth. But I loved you. I really did. Just not the way you needed. Maybe not the way anyone needed." I burned the letter. Because love without respect isn't love at all. I moved across the country. I started volunteering at a grief counseling center. I'm now the woman who listens when others whisper she doesn't know. Because I do know. I know how it feels to have your world erased. And I know how to rebuild. Brick by brick. Truth by truth. Not in Ben's shadow, but in my own light. Some revenge stories end in courtroom battles. Others in public humiliation. Mine, it ended when I chose me. When I stopped chasing closure from a ghost. And gave it to myself. Because the greatest revenge is living well, living free, and never letting anyone erase you again. We all think we know the people we love, but sometimes they're just wearing a mask. And when that mask falls, you can either break or become someone stronger. I chose the latter. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and tell us in the comments, what's the most shocking betrayal you've ever witnessed? And of course, subscribe for more stories like this. Real voices, real revenge.